September 21st, 1899, Volume 2, Differences with Lady Obedience. The Purpose of Luisa's State. Yet who would have said it? In spite of the fact that the wrong is hers, and that she does not give me the capacity to manifest it, Miss Obedience took offense and began to act like a cruel tyrant. And she reached such cruelty as to take the sight of my loving good away from me, my sole and only comfort. It really shows that sometimes she also behaves like a little girl. When she has a whim for something, if she does not get it with good manners, she deafens the house with screams and with crying, to the point that one is forced to content her. There are no reasons. There is no way in the middle to persuade her. So Lady Obedience does. Brava! I would not have thought you were like this. Since she wants to get her own way, she wants me, even stammering, to write about charity. Oh, holy God, you yourself, make her a little bit more reasonable, because it really shows that one cannot go on in this way. And you, O Obedience, give me back my sweet Jesus. Do not cut me to the quick any more. I pray you not to take the sight of my highest good away from me any more. And I promise you that, even stammering, I will write as you want. I only ask of you the good grace to let me recover for a few days, because my mind, too little, can no longer take being immersed in that vast ocean of divine charity, especially because in it I can see my miseries and my ugliness more. And in seeing the love that God has for me, I feel I am almost going mad. And so my weak nature feels faint and can take no more. But in the meantime I will occupy myself with writing about other things, to then continue with charity. I resume my poor speaking. While my mind was occupied with the things already said, I was thinking to myself, what would be the purpose of writing this, if I myself did not practice what I write? This writing would certainly be my condemnation. While I was thinking of this, Blessed Jesus came and told me, "This writing will serve to make known who the one is that speaks to you and occupies your person. And then if it does not serve you, my light will serve others, who will read what I make you write." Who can say how mortified I was left in thinking that others will take advantage of the graces he gives me, if they read these writings, and I who receive them do not? Will they not condemn me? And then at the mere thought that they may end up in the hands of others, my heart aches with pain and with blushing for myself. Now, remaining in greatest affliction, I kept saying, what is the purpose of my state, if it will serve as condemnation? And my most loving Jesus, coming back, told me, my life was necessary for the salvation of the peoples, and since I could not continue it on earth, I choose whom I please in order to continue it within them, so as to continue the salvation of the peoples. This is the purpose of your state. September 21st, 1900, Volume 4, The Power of Obedience. Obedience must be everything for her. Who can tell my affliction in being deprived of my dearest friend, suffering? I admired, yes, the prodigious empire of holy obedience, as well as the virtue which the Lord had communicated to the confessor, who, by obedience and by signing me, had freed me of a malady which I considered grave, and which was enough to undo my body. But in spite of this, I could not help feeling the pain of being deprived of a suffering so good, which moved blessed Jesus to pity and compassion, in such a way that I could make him come almost continuously. So when our Lord came, I lamented to him, saying, My beloved good, what have you done to me? You had me freed by the confessor, and so I have lost the hope of leaving the earth for now. Besides, why make so many stratagems, putting Father in the middle, when you could have freed me yourself? Ah, maybe you did not want to grieve me directly, did you? And he, Ah, my daughter, how quickly you have forgotten that obedience was everything to me, and I want obedience to be everything for you. Besides, I put Father in the middle so that you would have regard for him as for my very person. Having said this, he disappeared, leaving me all embittered. How many things can Lady Obedience come up with? One has to know her, and have to deal with her for a long time, not a short one, to truly be able to tell who she is. Brava, brava, Lady Obedience. The more one goes on, the more you make yourself known. As for myself, to tell the truth, I admire you, and I am even forced to love you. But I cannot help feeling huffy with you, especially when you come up with one of your big ones. Therefore I beg you, oh dear Obedience, to be more indulgent in letting me suffer. September 21st, 1913, Volume 11. All things done with Jesus in his divine will become his own, with his same qualities, the same life, and the same creative power. This morning my always adorable Jesus made himself seen with unspeakable sweetness and affability, as if he wanted to tell me something very dear to him and very surprising for me. So hugging me and pressing me to his heart, he told me, My beloved daughter, all the things that the soul does in my will and together with me, prayers, actions, steps, and so forth, acquire my same qualities, the same life, and the same value. See, all the things that I did upon earth, prayers, sufferings, works, are all in action, and will remain in eternity for the good of whoever wants them. My work differs from the work of the creatures. Containing within myself the creative power, I speak and I create, just as one day I spoke and created the sun. It is as if this sun, which is always full of light and heat that never decreases, remained in the act of receiving continuous creation from me. Such was my work on earth. Since I contain the creative power within me, the prayers, the steps, the works which I did, and the blood which I shed, remain in continuous act of praying, working, walking, and so forth, just as the sun is in continuous act of giving light. Therefore, my prayers continue. My steps are always in the act of running after souls, and so on with the rest. Otherwise, what would be the great difference between my work and the work of my saints? Now, my daughter, listen to a beautiful, beautiful thing, not yet understood by creatures. All the things that the soul does together with me and in my will are like my own things, and they remain as her own. The connection of my will and the work done together with me participate in my same creative power. I remained ecstatic with a joy that I could not contain, and I said, Is all this possible, O Jesus? And he, Whoever does not understand this can say that he does not know me. And he disappeared. But I cannot say it well, and I do not know how to explain myself better. Who can tell all that he made me understand? Rather, it seems to me that I've just said nonsense. September 21st, 1920, Volume 12. The acts in the divine will remain confirmed in it. I was doing my acts in the most holy will of my Jesus, and moving in my interior, he told me, "My daughter, as the soul does her acts in my will, her acts remain confirmed in it. So if she prays in my will, as her prayer remains confirmed in my will, she receives the life of prayer, in such a way that she will no longer need to make an effort to pray, but she will feel the spontaneous promptness of prayer within herself. In fact, remaining confirmed in my will, she will feel within herself the spring of the life of prayer. A healthy eye makes no effort to see. Rather, it naturally looks at objects, delighting in them and enjoying them, because it contains the life of light within itself. But a sick eye, how many efforts, how it suffers in looking. In the same way, if the soul suffers in my will, if she works, she will feel within herself the life of patience, the life of working in a saintly way. So as her acts remain confirmed in my will, they lose weaknesses, miseries, all that is human, and are substituted by springs of divine life. September 21st, 1921, Volume 13. Jesus wants to give his goods to his children. Jesus before Caiaphas. The working of the divine will is daylight. As I was in my usual state, my always lovable Jesus on coming told me, "My daughter, in what painful conditions creatures put me. I am like a most rich father who loves his children immensely, but the children, immensely ungrateful, while the father wants to clothe them, refuse his clothes and want to remain naked. The father gives them food, but they want to starve, and if they eat at all, they feed themselves with filthy and vile foods. The father offers them riches. He wants to keep them around himself. He gives them his own residence. But the children do not want to accept anything, contenting themselves with going wandering, homeless and poor. Poor father, how many sorrows, how many tears does he not shed? He would be less unhappy if he had nothing to give. But possessing goods and not being able to use them, while seeing his children dying, is a sorrow that surpasses every sorrow. So I am. I want to give, and there is no one who takes. Therefore creatures are the cause of my shedding bitter tears and of continuous sorrow. But do you know who dries my tears and turns my sorrow into joy? One who wants to be always together with me. One who takes my riches with love and with filial trust, who eats at my own table and clothes himself with my own garments. To these I give without measure. They are my confidants, and I make them rest upon my lap. After this I found myself outside of myself, and I could see new revolutions arise among different parties. And since these will be the cause of greater fights, my sweet Jesus told me, "My daughter, if parties were not formed, true revolutions could not occur, especially against the Church. In fact, if that party did not exist, the element against which to fight would be missing. But how many from this party, which apparently is said to be Catholic, are true wolves covered with the mantle of lambs, and will give many sorrows to my Church. Many believe that with this party Religion will be defended, but it will be all the opposite, and the enemies will use it to rail more against it. Afterwards I came back into myself, and it was the hour at which my beloved Jesus went out of prison and was brought again before Caiaphas. I tried to accompany him in this mystery, and Jesus told me, "My daughter, when I was presented to Caiaphas, it was full daylight, and my love toward creatures was so great that on this last day I went out before the pontiff, all disfigured and wounded, to receive my death sentence. But how many pains this sentence would cost me! And I converted these pains into eternal days with which I surrounded each creature, so that by dispelling the darkness from them, each one might find the necessary light in order to be saved, as well as my death sentence at her disposal to find her life in it. Therefore each pain I suffered and each good I did was one more day that I gave to the creature. And not only myself, but also the good which creatures do is always daylight that they form, just as evil is night. It happens as when a person has a light, and 10 or 20 people are near him. Even though the light does not belong to all, but to one, the others enjoy the light. They can work, read, and while they enjoy the use of that light, they cause no harm to the person who possesses it. The same is with doing good. It is daylight not only for one soul, but who knows for how many others she can form daylight. Good is always communicative, and my love not only pushed me, but it gave also to the creatures who love me the grace to form as many days for their brothers, for as many good works as they do. September 21st, 1923, Volume 16, Courage and Fidelity in Trials. Love, the Cross, and the Divine Will made justice in Luisa. The circle of the divine will which embraces the great wheel of eternity. I feel very embittered because of the privation of my sweet Jesus. Everything seemed to be over for me, with almost no hope that he would return to his little and poor exiled. I felt my heart break with pain, thinking that I would never have seen again the one who had lived his life with me, and therefore formed my own life. But now my life had disappeared and separated from me. My Jesus, how brutally you kill me. Without you I feel the pains of hell. While I die, I am forced to live. Now, as I was in this painful state, my always adorable Jesus moved in my interior, and stretching out one arm, he held me tightly to give me back life, and told me, "My daughter, my will wanted to make justice of you. This was necessary in order to test your fidelity, since all my attributes concur in all my works. And when the generations will see all that I poured into you, surprised, will say, 'How could she not do all this after all the graces he gave to her?' My justice will show the trials it made you undergo, and will say to them, 'I made her go through the fire of my justice, and I found her faithful. Therefore my love has continued its course.' Even more, you must know that the first one to make justice of you was my love. How many trials did it not make you go through in order to be certain of your love? The second one was the cross, which made severe justice of you, to the extent that my will, drawn by my love and by the cross, wanted to descend into you and make you live in it. But also my will did not want to be outdone by my love and by the cross, and to be more certain, it jealously withdrew, making justice of you, to see whether you would continue your flights in my will without me. Upon hearing this, I said, how could I continue those flights without you? I lacked light, and if I started, I could not finish, because the one who, making everything present to me, made me operate for all, allowing me to bind all the relations between the Creator and all creation, was not with me. My mind was swimming in the empty space, finding no one. How could I do them? And Jesus, your starting was doing, and your pain for being unable to finish was completing. Therefore, it takes courage and fidelity. With a little test, one is always more certain and sure. And then, if not even my Queen Mamma was spared from these trials, would you want to be exempted from them? Then, after some time, he came back again, and he made himself seen inside of me, in the middle of a circle upon which he invited the souls to go, in order to let them walk on that circle. I got on it, never to descend again, and my adorable Jesus told me, "My daughter, this circle is my eternal will, which embraces the great wheel of eternity. All that is contained in this circle is nothing other than all that my humanity did in the divine will, to impetrate that my will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Everything is prepared and done. There is nothing left but to open the doors and to make it known, so that man may take possession of it. It was said about me, when I came upon earth to redeem man, that I was going to be the salvation and the ruin of many. The same will be said now, that this will of mine will be either of great sanctity, since my will is of absolute sanctity, or of ruin for many. See, while rotating upon this circle, it is necessary to look inside, never outside of it, because inside there is light, knowledge, my strength and my acts, as help, attraction, and life, in order to take the life of my will. Outside of it, there is none of this. The creatures will find darkness and will fall into the abyss. Therefore be attentive. Keep your gaze always fixed into my will, and you will find yourself with the fullness of the grace of living in my will. September 21st, 1927, Volume 23. How the soul who lives in the divine will places the acts of it in exercise. How the truth is perennial life and continuous miracle. I was going around throughout the whole creation, asking for the kingdom of the supreme Fiat in each created thing. And my adored Jesus, moving in my interior, told me, "My daughter, since all created things are fixed in God, as you ask for the kingdom of my divine will in each of them, the created things move in God and ask for my kingdom. Each of them forms its supplicating wave, the incessant motion to ask for what you want. And since created things are nothing other than acts come out of my divine will, and each act was given an office, as you ask for my kingdom in each created thing, you place all the offices of the acts of my supreme volition in exercise around the divine being, and you make our goodness, our power, justice and mercy, our love and wisdom ask for the kingdom of our will. In fact, each created thing contains a quality of ours, and we feel waves of beauty, of power, of justice, of mercy, of love, of wisdom coming to us, one after the other, that with divine ways supplicate, pray, plead for the kingdom of the divine Fiat in the midst of creatures. And in seeing ourselves being prayed so much by the very acts of our divine will, we ask, who is she who moves a will so great, with all its innumerable acts, to ask of us that we give our kingdom to creatures? And our acts answer us. It is the little daughter of the eternal volition. It is the daughter of all of us, who with so much love moves our acts to ask for what we all want. And in the excess of our love, we say, ah, it is the little daughter of our will. Let her do it. To her it is given to penetrate everywhere. Let her pass freely, because she will not do anything nor ask for anything but what we ourselves want. After this I was thinking about all that my adored Jesus had told me on his divine will, and it was as if I wanted additional and more sure proofs that it was Jesus who was speaking to me. And Jesus, coming out from my interior, told me, "My daughter, there is no proof that is more certain and sure, and that can do greater good both to you and to others, than my having manifested to you so many truths. Truth is more than miracle. It brings permanent divine life within itself, and wherever it reaches, and in whomever listens to it, it bilocates the truth together with its life, to give itself to whomever wants it. Therefore my truths are perennial light, not subject to being extinguished, as well as life that never dies. What good can a truth of mine not produce? It can form saints. It can convert souls. It can dispel darkness, and has the virtue of renewing the whole world. Therefore, I perform a greater miracle when I manifest one of my truths than when I give further proofs that it is I who go to the soul, or did other miraculous things, because these are the shadow of my power, passing light, and because it is passing, it does not bring the miraculous virtue to all, but is limited to the individual who has received the miracle, and many times not even the one who has received the miracle makes himself a saint. On the other hand, the truth contains life, and as life brings its virtue to whomever wants it. Be certain, my daughter, that if in coming upon earth I had not spoken so many truths in the gospel, even if I had done miracles, the redemption would have been hampered, without development, because they would have found nothing, neither teachings nor light of truth, in order to learn the remedies, to find the way that leads to heaven. So it would be with you. Had I not spoken to you so many truths, especially on my adorable will, that has been the greatest miracle I have done in these times. What good would your mission bring? The mission so great, entrusted to you, of making known the kingdom of my supreme Fiat. On the other hand, because I have told you so many truths about it, my divine will can be known in the world. The order, the peace, the light, the lost happiness can be restored. All these truths will bring man onto the lap of his Creator, that they may exchange the first kiss of creation, and man may be given back the image of he who created him. If you knew the great good that all these truths I have spoken to you will bring to creatures, your heart would split with joy. Nor can you fear that the infernal enemy might dare to manifest to you a single truth about my divine will. In fact, before its light, he trembles and flees, and each truth on my will is one more hell for him. And because he wanted neither to love it nor to do it. It changed for him into torments that will have no end. Before the mere word will of God, he feels himself burnt so much that he flies into a rage, and he hates that holy will that torments him more than hell. Therefore, you can be sure that will of God and infernal enemy never get along, nor can they be together or close. Its light eclipses him and hurls him into the chasms of hell. Therefore, what I recommend to you is that you let not even one truth or a simple word on my divine will be lost, because everything must serve to perform the chain of perennial miracles so as to make known its kingdom and give back the lost happiness to creatures. September 21st, 1928, Volume 24. How from the beginning of creation God has always given to man. The siege of the human will. Value of the acts done in the divine volition. Example of the sun. I continued my round in the creation to keep company with all the works of the divine Fiat, and together with it, oh, how rich in light I felt, possessor of everything. It seemed to me that everything was mine, because the divine will gave me everything, and by going around in it, I received everything. And my sweet Jesus, coming out from within my interior, told me, oh, how rich and ruling the little daughter of my divine will is in the midst of our works. There are so many that she cannot embrace them all, and we, delighting in seeing her in the midst of our works, keep repeating to her, everything is yours. For you we have created it, to see you rich, beautiful, and ruling. And you, repeating the contest with us, say to us, how many beautiful works I have that I can give you. All of your works are mine, and I return them to you, into your arms, as the glory and triumph of your works. Indeed, from the moment we created the creation, we have always given to man, without ever ceasing, while he has given us nothing. And if he tried to give us, they were things extraneous to us, meager, unworthy of us. But when our divine will is recognized and the creature comes to live in it, she will take possession of our works. Then will we cease to give, because we have given enough, so much that she will not be able to embrace them all. And the creature will begin to give to her Creator. And she will give us not things extraneous to and unworthy of us, but our own things, the fruits of our own works. Oh, how glorified, loved, and honored we will feel. So, the knowledge of the divine Fiat, the return of its life into the midst of creatures, will open the contest between Creator and creature. She will be able to give to us, and we will be able to let her possess. It will be the return of our works into our womb. Therefore let your flight in our divine Fiat be continuous, that we may give you everything, and you may give us everything. Moreover, one who lives in our will lives of light, and with the power of its light, our will has the virtue of knocking down all evils, of taking life away from passions, of dispelling darkness. Therefore, with its light, the divine will has the virtue of rendering the creature incapable of doing and of receiving any harm. Who could ever wage war against the light? No one. Who could ever say, I can prevent the passage of light? No one. And if anyone tried to do it, the light would laugh at him, and with its triumphing virtue it would invest him, pass him from above, from below, from everywhere, and making fun of him, While following its course, it would keep him under its power and pressure of light, unless he went to hide himself in some dark abyss. Does the sun not do this? Much more so does the sun of my will, and the soul who lives in this light does nothing but expand the capacity of her intelligence to be able to receive more light. So each act done in my divine fiat forms with its light the void in the human mind to be able to communicate more greater light. After this, I was thinking of how the kingdom of the supreme fiat could come, and my sweet Jesus added, "My daughter, all things in my hands can be means to obtain the intent that my divine will be known and reign in the midst of creatures. I will act like a king when he wants a city to surrender to his dominion. He lays siege to it. He makes its people touch with their own hands how if they do not surrender, he will make them die of starvation. And when the people see that they lack the means of life in order to live, they surrender. And the king will lift the siege, and ruling will enter the city, and will provide in a superabundant way all the means of life. He will give them feasts, amusements, and will render that people happy. So I will do. I will lay siege to the human will. I will embitter and destroy what serves to nourish it, and therefore many chastisements will occur. That will be nothing other than the siege I will lay to all that is human, in such a way that, tired, disillusioned, they will feel the need for my divine fiat to reign in their midst. And as soon as it sees that they long for it, it will take dominion. It will provide them with everything in abundance, and will render them happy. Therefore you have no concern. I know how to dispose all the events in order to obtain the intent." Then I was thinking to myself about the great value of our acts done in the divine fiat, which is such that, while the act is one, it can extend to all. And my sweet Jesus, moving in my interior, told me, "My daughter, just as the light of the sun, with one single blow of light, gives light to the whole creature, in such a way that, in the same instant and with one alone of its acts, it gives light to the gaze, to the mouth, to the hands, to the steps, to everything. Nor does it need to repeat its act of light so many times for as many members as the creature has. But one single act of light is enough for everything, so that each member and object may have its light all to itself. The same for the acts done in my divine volition. Since they are children of the light of my divine will, with one single act it can make light for all. It can extend everywhere, because it is a virtue and property that the light of my divine fiat possesses within itself, that with one single act it can give light to all. And if there can be any difference, it is on the part of those who receive it. One who is disposed takes the good of the light and profits from it. One who is not disposed, even though he feels himself full of light, does not take the good it contains. It happens as to the sun, that gives light to all, and no one can say, "To me it does not give its light." And since all can receive it as they please, it provokes no jealousy. However, there can be great difference. Some make use of the light in order to work, and they earn their profit. Some enjoy the light and remain idle, earning nothing. Some make use of it to amuse themselves, some to sin. The light does not change. It is always light and performs its office of light. But not all of those who receive it make a profit of it, or use it in the same way. Such is my divine will and the acts done in it. They are always light, but those who profit from this light are the ones who are disposed. September 21st, 1931, Volume 29. How the divine will forms the day in the act of the creature, and how by doing her will she forms the way out, the doleful steps, the night of vigils. I was continuing my acts in the divine volition, and I prayed my highest good, Jesus, to make the sun of the divine will rise in each of my acts, so that I might give him in each of my acts the love, the homage, the glory, as if I were forming for him in each act of mine a day of divine light, of love, of profound adoration, communicated to me into my act by his own will. Oh, how I would like to say in each of my acts, whether big or small, I make a day for Jesus, to love him more. But while I was thinking of this, my beloved Jesus, repeating his usual little visit to my soul, told me, "My daughter, my divine will is the true day for the creature. But in order to form this day, it wants to be called in her act, because as it is called, so it encloses itself in the act to make its divine day arise. It has the virtue of changing the act, the word, the step, the joys and the pains, into most splendid and enchanting days. So my divine will is waiting, as the creature rises from her nocturnal rest, to be called in order to form its day of action in her. And since it is most pure light, it does not adapt itself to working in the dark act of the human will, but with its light, it changes the act into daylight, and forms in it its splendid day, filled with heroic and divine actions, with such order and beauty, worthy only of its vivifying and operative virtue. It can be said that it is waiting behind the doors of the act of the creature, just like the sun behind the windows of the rooms, such that even though outside there is much light, the rooms are in the dark, because the doors have not yet been opened to it. The same for my divine will. Even though it is light that fills everything, the human act is always dark if my will is not called to rise in it. Therefore call it to rise in each of your acts, if you want it to form in you its beautiful day, and I may find in you and in each of your acts my days of love that surround me with joy and with delights that will make me repeat, my delight is to be with the children of my divine will. I will spend my days happy in you, not in the unhappy night of your human will, but in the full dwelling of my light and of the perennial peace of my celestial fatherland. Ah, yes, I will repeat, I am happy in this creature. I hear in her the echo of my day, spent down here on earth, and the echo of my day that I do in my prison in the sacrament of love, all packed with my divine will. So if you want to render me happy, let me find in you the operating virtue of my divine will, that knows how to form for me my beautiful days of most refulgent light, all strewn with ineffable joys and with celestial happiness. More so since the creature, even from the beginning of her creation, was placed by God in the happy and peaceful day of our divine will. Inside and outside of her, everything was light, even more, full midday. Inside her heart, before her eyes, above her head, and even under her steps, she could see and feel the palpitating life of my holy volition, that while it kept her immersed in the fullness of light and of happiness, it closed for her all the ways and the steps of human unhappinesses, and the creature, by doing her human will, formed for herself the outlets, the unhappy ways, the doleful steps, the thick darknesses, in which she herself formed her own unhappiness, the tortures, the pain, the oppressing night, not of rest, but of vigils of passions, of agitations, and of torments. And this in my very divine will. And this because, since the creature was made only by it, and to live of it and in it, there is no place for her either on earth or in heaven or even in hell, outside of my divine fiat. So one who tries to live in my divine will closes these outlets. Each of her acts in it suppresses the unhappy ways that she has formed, makes the doleful steps disappear, suffocates the night, makes rest arise, and puts an end to all her evils. Rather, my own divine will, as it sees that she wants to live in it, caresses her, puts her in feast, and helps her to suppress the outlets. It closes the doors to her evils, because we neither want nor do we love for the creature to be unhappy. It dishonors us and forms her sorrow and ours. Therefore we want to see her happy, and of our own happiness. Oh, how painful it is for our paternal heart to possess immense riches, infinite joys, and to see our children in our own house, that is, in our own will, poor, starving, and unhappy. End of September 21st. Fiat.